When I feel down, you're always there. Means so much to know that you care. Wherever I am, I want you to know you're always here in my heart. You're my best friend, and I'm sure you know you're always here in my heart. You're always here in my heart.
Hello, and welcome back to Spirit Song Ministries, where I always want to encourage you to let the Word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, teaching and admonishing one another in hymns and psalms and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your hearts to the Lord. Again, glad to have you back with us. Tonight I'm kicking off my God Stories playlist or series, in which I will be including a number of different testimonies about things that happened to me over the years. And I can't underestimate, or understate, I should say, the value and significance of testimony, because, that's what our life in God really is all about. The scriptures tell us, once you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord, walk as children of light. So that walking out as God's children has to do with us giving glory to Him. We're always pointing to Him with the story of our life. And so that's what this is about. Tonight I'm going to kick it off with what I've titled as Escape from Death. There is a passage in Psalms. It is actually Psalm 68:20. It says, "Our God is the God of salvation, and to God the Lord belong escapes from death." So that means He owns every one of them. And that's what I'm going to start off with. This happened in the late winter of 1976, about late January, early February, somewhere in there. I was at that time working at a seafood restaurant in Bloomfield, Connecticut, that was owned by two brothers. They were Portuguese and Greek. Last name was Werdig. It was Ralph and Paul. And Ralph and his wife ran the seafood restaurant where I worked. And his brother Paul ran the car wash that was about a block and a half away. When I hired on at the restaurant, I started off as a dishwasher, bussing dishes and doing all the dishwashing thing. And I eventually transitioned into a salad chef position and did, numerous other things in the kitchen. And my friend Rick was a journeyman chef, so he was actually trained under a professional chef who would come in once a month to train him. We rented the top of a house. Rick came out from California to Connecticut with a friend of his named Steve also, Steve Wells. And we rented the top half of this house about a block and a half away from the restaurant. It was easy walking distance. And it was a party house. If you know anything about the 70s, pretty much that was the lifestyle for me and many people that I knew. We were all caught up in the, party lifestyle. So we just lived, from one party to the next, which was just a sad reality, actually. But that was really what we looked forward to. So, as soon as I would get off work, I'd head straight to the bar and, down a couple shots, and then go home, take a shower, and then head out to the package store. And then from there, go out and looking for parties and calling friends and whatever. And so that was the whole, that was the big life, which is no life at all, really. So Rick had been working on his van. So he was modifying this, Chevy van, chairing it out with the shag carpeting on the inside and, modifying it with some speakers and some other things like that. And so he was all excited about it, was doing a great job on it. And it had come time to, get it licensed and insured. And we had a roommate named Mark. He was a dishwasher at that time once I moved over to a salad chef position. And he, in all honesty, wasn't really, I guess we could say, the sharpest tool in the shed. Kind of an unusual guy. I'm not saying it to be unkind, but just kind of lend a little insight as to some of the things he did. It'll make more sense later. But in any case, we had kicked our roommate out He was a longtime friend of Rick's, had come from California to Connecticut with Rick, but he became a Christian, and he really started pushing his stuff on us, and we didn't really appreciate it because we didn't live a clean lifestyle. We were, immoral, and we had girlfriends. There was all that kind of stuff going on, and he was constantly honest about that, and reading his Bible in the kitchen in front of us, and he would do it intentionally. And looking back on it, I understood better where he was, then. But at the time, he was just annoying to us, and he was constantly challenging us on our lifestyle. And finally, we threw him out. So we invited this dishwasher, Mark, to take his place just to pick up that third of the rent. So Mark, had offered to give Rick a ride to the insurance agency to insure the van. So it was about a 45-minute drive. It was in the dead of winter. I think it was January, late January, early February. Bitter cold. It was, 10 below zero, roughly. They asked me if I wanted to go, and so they went down to Mark's car, and I just told them, nah, I'll hang out here, see ya. But after a few minutes, I thought, well, I have nothing to do, so I might as well just go. So I, grabbed my coat, ran down the stairs, and, and they were just backing out, and so I stopped them. And I hopped in. They were all three of us in the front seat. And we started to back out, and then Rick said, hey, Mark, wait. And he said, Steve, get out. And I said, what? He goes, I just switch with me. I was like, okay. So we switched places. So I got in between him and Mark in the front seat. He got in, shut the door, and we went on our way. So we were driving down this long, winding S-curve road out in the middle of Bloomfield. We had to go a good distance. I think it might have been Windsor Locks or somewhere like that. I can't really fully remember that. But it was probably about a 45-minute drive to get to the insurance agency. And, as we were driving along, remember, it was dead of winter. There was probably a good 3-4 inches of snow. It was a recent snowfall. The roads were cleared off, they'd been plowed, but it was obvious there was black ice on the roads. It was not great road conditions at all. And Mark was driving super fast. I mean, he, kept increasing speed, and we're like looking at him going, Mark, what are you doing? And he was driving, at 70 miles an hour on this curving road. And we kept telling him, you need to slow down, and he's kind of driving, he's got his wrist laying on the top of the steering wheel, and he's just tooling along there. He goes, man, no, be cool, man. I got it, And we're like, Mark, this is not cool. Just, you need to slow down. Oh, I got it. No problem, Well, anyway, at that point, Rick said, I'm never going to get in a car with you again. And I echoed the same thing. I said, I'm not either. You're an idiot, And right just within a few seconds of that, he completely lost control, meaning that no matter what he did with the wheel, the car was going straight. And the road curved a little bit, to the right. And so next thing you know, we're in the oncoming traffic lane, and there's cars, coming toward us. And we're like, oh my gosh. So then the road curved back a little bit, and then we're in our lane again. And then after just a few moments, the road curved to the left significantly, and we went over this snow embankment, and we were like just launched out into this field. We missed some trees very narrowly, and we're going across this field toward this abandoned farmhouse at 70 miles an hour, if you can imagine. And there's these trees just, we're whizzing by us, but everything just seemed to slow down. I can't explain that unless you've ever been in something like that. But anyway, everything literally went slow-mo, just slow motion. And I saw this huge tree kind of, I don't know how close, probably maybe, 30, maybe 50 feet to the right side of this farmhouse, something like that. It was fairly close. But I saw this tree coming, and I grabbed Mark by the shoulder, and I said, don't hit that tree. And that was the last thing I remember. It was lights out. So when I came to, it took me a minute to even realize what had happened. but Rick was on my right, and his arm was across his face, and so I couldn't see his face. His arm was up across his face, and he had blood running down. I could see on his chin and everything, and on his coat. And then his hand was stuck between the car and the tree. And so I immediately wondered, I don't remember thinking, well, I wonder if he's dead. I don't remember even thinking that, but I was just like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. But I pulled on the sleeve of his coat, and his hand slid out of the glove, and his glove stayed between the car and the tree, which was just really weird. But the car had it was completely destroyed, and it had contoured to this huge tree. And the tree was probably a good 6 feet across at the base, something like that, 6-7 feet. So it was a big old tree, probably several hundred years old. But in any case, Mark was climbing out the driver's side window, and then I remember being very disoriented, but I climbed out after him, and I went around to the front of the car, and I started noticing that I was in pain, and I had ringing in my ears, and I had kind of a tunnel vision, not totally tunnel vision, but my peripheral vision was kind of limited somehow. It's hard to explain that either. It was kind of like I was in a fog. But I remember I went around to the front of the car, and I was standing there, and I back then I had long, thick, wavy hair down to my shoulders, and my hair was full of glass. I had glass down in my clothes. They were in my glass was in my shoes, and I had glass in my mouth, and I was kind of grinding on glass between my teeth, and I started kind of spitting out some blood and saliva, and on the ground in front of me. And it was just a very, very horrible, strange feeling. And anyway, all of a sudden, I noticed that these two pretty young women were stepping toward me, and just out of some brush with some small saplings. But they all of a sudden were there, and they were stepping toward me. And they were dressed in blue jeans and sweaters. And it was 10 below zero, which it seemed really odd to me, but they had, long blonde hair. I could best describe their eyes as kind of clear eyes, I would say probably blue. And one of them said, "Are you all right?" And that was the one on the right. And I said, "I don't know." The other one on the left said, "Don't worry, everything's going to be all right." And so right then I heard a car screeching to a halt up on the road. So I drew my attention up to the road, and I saw this guy jump out of a car, a sedan, and he had a black medical bag, and he was running down across this field toward our car. And so I stepped toward the car to kind of meet him where he was coming down. And so he got close to the car, and I said, "My friend's in there." And he said, "Step back from the car, please." And I said, "My friend's in there." And he said, "Step back, please." And so I stepped back, and he climbed in. And the strangest thing is he opened the door on the car, and I don't know how he did that because we couldn't open it, at least from the inside. So then I turned around, and the girls were gone. So Mark was leaning on the back quarter panel of the car, which was all that was left of the car. It was the quarter panel and part of the trunk. And I think at this point it'd be good to mention that the car had actually slapped into the tree sideways. So again, we were heading at a tree head on initially. And when I came to, the car had hit the tree sideways. So I should have mentioned that. But in any case, I to this day, I've thought of this 1,000 times. I don't know how the car managed to hit sideways other than possibly because Mark had put cinder blocks in the trunk of the car for traction. Maybe they shifted or something and caused the car to slide sideways. Don't know. Maybe we hit a bump in the field. I don't know. And the car, again, was utterly demolished. But when I turned around, the girls are gone. I turned toward Mark. I said, Mark, what happened to the girls? And he goes, what girls? So he never saw them. At that point, I was trying to, I think everything seemed still kind of slow-mo. Like, in other words, I think my mind was trying to catch up with everything that was going on, because I don't remember an ambulance showing up, but an ambulance was there, and they were loading Rick in on a gurney, and then Mark and I got in the back of the ambulance, and they didn't have us on a gurney. They didn't have us laying down. I don't know why that was. Even looking back on it, I'm thinking, why didn't they have us in neck braces or something? They didn't. I don't remember them even really checking us out. But they took us to a hospital that was probably 40 minutes or so away, and they kept Rick on a gurney for probably a couple hours. He was just sitting in the hallway on this gurney, and he was unconscious. Then he finally he came to. I was in excruciating pain. It felt like my collarbones had been broken, my ribs, and just everything felt like it was broken. As it turned out, after they finally checked me out, they found out that I didn't have any broken bones, and they diagnosed me with what they called contusion of the chest. So on the impact at 70 miles an hour, Mark's shoulder caught me on my left side, and Rick's shoulder caught me behind my right shoulder, and we stopped at 70 miles an hour. So it just jammed me together. And so I guess that's what caused this contusion. So for probably 15 years, I could crack my chest like you pop your knuckles, which is just crazy. But if I laid on my elbow writing or doing what I was doing and I straightened up, it would pop and crackle, right in my chest. So really odd. But that finally went away after many years. But anyway, completely out of the box. I had no reference for what had happened to me that day, and I finally went back to work. It was probably about 3 weeks before I could work, because I even tried to go to work just to make some money. But when I tried to pick up a bus pan of dishes, I couldn't even lift it because the pain would just rack my body with pain. It was horrific. And also I suffered with wicked headaches for probably a week or so. So it was a wicked wreck. The most shocking thing was seeing the car. About 2 weeks after the wreck, maybe it was a week after, I'm not positive. It was it took me a good 4 or 5 days before I even left my apartment. But anyway, I went to the gas station where they towed the car to, and I don't know if I've ever seen a car that destroyed. And I couldn't fathom how 3 of us got out of that car. When you looked at the car, it was just a mangled piece of twisted metal. There was room maybe for one person in the front seat, but the dash was completely pushed up into the left side to the driver's side, and there was almost nothing left to the right side where Rick was sitting. And again, probably only room for one person in the front seat of that car, and 3 of us got out of it. Rick, where the roof had curled down and caught him in the forehead, and he had, I don't remember, I think it was 10 or 12 stitches in his forehead, and he had a concussion, and his left foot was fractured in 3 places. I had the contusion of the chest. Mark had a dislocated shoulder. That was it. So that's my story. I could only come to the conclusion that those were angels, that God had sent them there, because there was just too many questions, like, where did these girls come from? How did they disappear as quickly as they appeared? Why did they leave the scene once they were there? Why were they so calm? Any girls at that age, they were roughly around my age, 18, 20 years old. What were they doing out in 10 below zero temperature in the middle of a field out in the country, wearing just jeans and sweaters. And again, why were they so calm? Most people would be freaked out to see a wreck like that. I know I would have been. So anyway, all those things taken together, how did they know it was going to be all right? Don't worry, everything's going to be all right. How did they know that? I mean, looking at that wreck, nothing should be all right if you hit a tree at 70 miles an hour. And, I've worked in Medicare insurance now for 10 and a half years, and I talk to clients, on a daily basis. Many clients are in horrible condition after, getting in a car wreck at 35 miles an hour, or, just falling down or whatever. And just, we all know what a car wreck can do to you. My wife's been in 3 car wrecks, and she was in a wreck that, she has a pacemaker. She got hit so hard, T-boned so hard that it knocked her earrings out, broke the driver's side window with her head, and her pacemaker was flipped upside down in her chest. I mean, and that was at a much lower impact, if you can imagine. So I'm just saying, wrecks can be horrible and do horrible damage to our fragile human bodies. So that's my story. I hope you'll consider leaving me a message. Maybe just leave a comment in the section below and let me know what you think. Maybe if you have an idea about how the car managed to hit the tree sideways. I've often thought too that, just maybe, Mark, who was driving, just, laid on the brake. I can't believe he wasn't, laying into the brake the whole time. Maybe at the last minute, the brake caught and it caused the car to go into a tailspin or something. So allowed it to hit the tree sideways. Other than that, it was just sovereign intervention because, had we hit the tree head on at 70, I don't think there would have been anything left of any of us. So anyway, I would like to say a quick prayer right now, and if you have a mind to, feel free to join me. Father, just thank you so much for preserving my life that day so many years ago. Lord, I didn't care about you and really was one of those people who shook my fist at heaven and said, why are you allowing this when I claimed not to even believe in you? And so, Father, I just ask for those who are viewing this now or may view it in the future, Lord, that you would speak to them by your Holy Spirit, Lord, and let them know that you have a purpose for their life, Lord, that if they have been through a life-changing event or a potentially life-threatening event where they should have died but didn't, Lord, I pray that they would understand, Lord, that it's your sovereign hand that prevented them from going to hell or from a fate that was just horrific. I mean, so many people, bodies are broken permanently through things like this and even less. So, Father, just thank you for your great grace and mercy, Lord, in saving me, in revealing your Son, Jesus, to me and saving my life and giving me eternal life. We thank you for all these things in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. So again, Psalm 68:20 says, our God is the God of salvation, and to God the Lord belong escapes from death. So that means he owns every one of them. So if you've ever, maybe had a real close call where you should have died but you didn't, and you thought, well, boy, I sure got lucky. No, you didn't get lucky. Our God is the God of salvation, and to God the Lord belong escapes from death. That means that he spared your life for a reason. He has a purpose for your life. So just wanted to share that with you. So I hope you're encouraged by that. Leave your comment in the section below, and we'll see you in the next God Stories. Thank you.
You're my best friend.